Hello. It's Wednesday, and the chat is working tonight. Sorry, we've got a little bit of a different setup at the beginning, but um, hi, Merry Christmas Eve. I am giving myself a breather with this, so I hope you are taking a breather too. Um, I'm not sure how long it is going to take us to read tonight. We've got two stories. We have a ghost story because some of you will know that it is an old custom to tell ghost stories. Aha, it will not let me see that way. That's all right. Um, yeah, it's a tradition to tell ghost stories on Christmas Eve. So we are going to continue that on tonight together. Um, I found one and I have skimmed it because when I printed it, it printed weird. And I had to go and find the top of every page. So, Merry Christmas, Heidi, and to my sister, Karen. I can't wait to see you on Friday. I'm so excited. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm being like a big baby this week, you guys. I have been all kinds of in my feelings and just having big ones. Um, so that is kind of why we're doing a ghost story tonight, because I was afraid to read any other kind of like touching Christmas story and end up just a blubbering mess at the end. Uh, I might, because you guys are here on Christmas Eve, spending some of your time with me, and I'm very grateful for that. So, I also, the second story I did not read for you guys last night or last week. I recorded for it was called the Yuletide Riot at the Hidden Gem in Dayton. And it was a food bank fundraiser, donation raiser. It was fantastic. They raised over $500, and two and a half of the big, like, toter tub barrel plastic things, two and a half of those. So it was wonderful. And yeah, so when I got done with you guys last night or last week, I don't know what I'm saying last week, I did a quick change and recorded that. So it is the quintessential Christmas story. So we are going to read that together tonight as well. So with that, as you jump in, please say hello and Merry Christmas in the chat to everybody. And if you are watching this later, please know that I am sending you just the biggest Christmas wishes. I hope that you feel very loved this weekend. It is a long weekend. I hope that you are able to show some love this weekend. And we're going to go ahead and get started with our ghost story, which is called Afterward. Oh, there is one, of course, but you'll never know it. The assertion, laughingly flung out 6 months earlier in a bright June garden, came back to Mary Boyne with a sharp perception of its latent significance as she stood in the December dusk, waiting for the lamps to be brought into the library. The words had been spoken by their friend, Alida Stair, as they sat at tea on her lawn in Pangbourne, in reference to the very house of which the library in question was the central, the pivotal feature. Mary Boyne and her husband, in quest of a country place in one of the southern or southwestern counties, had, on their arrival in England, carried their problem straight to Alita Stair, who had successfully solved it in her own case. But it was not until they had rejected, almost capriciously, several practical and judicious suggestions that she threw it out. Well, there's lying in Dorsetshire. It belongs to Hugo's cousins, and you can get it for a song. The reason she gave for it being obtainable on these terms is remoteness from a station, its lack of electric light, hot water pipes, and other vulgar necessities. Oh, no. Were exactly those pleading in its favor with two romantic Americans perversely in search of the economic drawbacks which were associated, in their tradition, with unusual architectural felicities. I should never believe I was living in an old house unless I was thoroughly uncomfortable. Oh, Lord. Ned Boyne, the more extravagant of the two, had jocosely? Heavy metal. Jocosely. Insisted. The least hint of convenience would make me think it had been brought out of an exhibition, with the pieces numbered and set up again. And they had proceeded to enumerate, with humorous precision, their various suspicions and exactions, refusing to believe that the house their cousin recommended was really Tudor, till they learned it had no heating system, or that the village church was literally in the grounds, till she assured them of the deplorable uncertainty of the water supply. It's too uncomfortable to be true. Edward Boyne had continued to exult as the avowal of each disadvantage was successfully wrung from her. But he had cut short his rhapsody to ask, with a sudden relapse to distrust, "And the ghost? You've been concealing from us the fact that there is no ghost." Mary, at the moment, had laughed with him, yet almost with her laugh, being possessed of several sets of independent perceptions, had noticed a sudden flatness of tone in Alita's answering hilarity. "Oh, Dorsetshire's full of ghosts, you know." Yes, yes, but that won't do. I don't want to have to drive 10 miles to see somebody else's ghost. I want one of my own on the premises. Is there a ghost at Lying? His rejoinder had made Alita laugh again, and it was then that she had flung back tantalizingly, "Oh, there is one, of course, but you'll never know it." Never know it. Boyne pulled her up. But what in the world constitutes a ghost except the fact of its being known for one? I can't say, but that's the story. That there's a ghost, but that nobody knows it's a ghost? Well, not till afterward, at any rate. Till afterward. Not till long, long afterward. But if it's once been identified as an unearthly visitant, why hasn't its signalment been handed down in the family? How has it managed to preserve its incognito? Alita could only shake her head. Don't ask me, but it has. And then suddenly, Mary spoke up as if from some cavernous depth of divination. Suddenly, long afterward, one says to oneself, that was it? She was oddly startled at the sound with which her question fell on the banter of the other two, and she saw the shadow of the same surprise flit across Alita's clear pupils. I suppose so. One just has to wait. Oh, hang waiting, Ned broke in. Life's too short for a ghost who can only be enjoyed in retrospect. Can't we do better than that, Mary? But it turned out that in the event they were not destined to, for within 3 months of their conversation with Mrs. Stair, they were established at Lying, and the life they had yearned for to the point of planning it out in all its daily details had actually begun for them. It was to sit, in the thick December dusk, by just such a wide-hooded fireplace, under just such black oak rafters, with the sense that beyond the mullion panes the downs were darkening to a deeper solitude. It was for the ultimate indulgence in such sensations that Mary Boyne had endured for nearly 14 years the soul deadening ugliness of the Middle West, and that Boyne had ground on doggedly at his engineering till, with a suddenness that made still her blink. The prodigious windfall of the Blue Star mine had put them at a stroke in possession of life and the leisure to taste it. They had never for a moment meant their new state to be one of idleness, but they meant to give themselves only to harmonious activities. Uh-huh. Okay. She had her vision of painting and gardening against a background of gray walls. He dreamed of the production of his long planned book on the economic basis of culture, and with such absorbing work ahead, no existence could be too sequestered. They could not get far enough from the world or plunge deep enough into the past. Dorsetshire had attracted them from the first by a semblance of remoteness out of all proportion to its geographical position. But to the Boynes, it was one of the ever recurring wonders of the whole incredibly compressed island, a nest of counties, as they put it, that for the production of its effects, so little of a given quality went so far, that so few miles made a distance, and so short a distance a difference. It's that, Ned had once enthusiastically explained, that gives such depth to their effects, such relief to their least contrasts. They've been able to lay the butter so thick on every exquisite mouthful. That is a turn of phrase I think I've only ever heard in like some of our older and I think in a couple of our Celtic stories, laying on the butter. Hmm. The butter had certainly been laid on thick at Lying. The old gray house, hidden under a shoulder of the downs, had almost all the finer marks of commerce with a protracted past. The mere fact that it was neither large nor exceptionally exceptional made it, to the Boynes at least, abound the more richly in its special sense. The sense of having been for centuries a deep, dim reservoir of life. The life had probably not been of the most vivid order. For long periods, no doubt, it had fallen as noiselessly into the past as the quiet drizzle of autumn fell, hour after hour, into the green fish pond between the yews. But these backwaters of existence sometimes breed, in their sluggish depths, strange acuities of emotion, and Mary Boyne had felt from the first the occasional brush of an intenser memory. Hmm. Yes, so what would we think? Residuals? Or is it a ghost? What do you think, Leonard? The feeling had never been stronger than on the December afternoon when, waiting in the library for the belated lamps, she rose from her seat and stood among the shadows of the hearth. Her husband had gone off after luncheon for one of his long tramps on the downs. She had noticed of late that he preferred to be unaccompanied on these occasions, and in the tried security of their personal relations, had been driven to conclude that his book was bothering him, and that he needed the afternoons to turn over in solitude the problems left from the morning's work. I can understand that. Yes, please. How do they say Merry Christmas in Icelandic? I've been following all of your 12 days. Yule cat today, right? A Yule cat today. Meow. Meow. Ah, meow, our Yule cats. Oh. Um, I I don't know. I did not get myself new clothes for Christmas. But I guess we'll find out. Oh, Merry Christmas. Okay, so let's continue on. Mary is waiting for the lamps. She rose from her seat and stood among the shadows of the hearth. Oh, there we go. I'm so sorry. Went back too far. He was turning over in solitude the problems left from the morning's work. Certainly the book was not going as smoothly as she had imagined it would, and the lines of perplexity between his eyes had never been there in his engineering days. Then he had often looked fagged to the verge of illness, but the native demon of worry had never branded his brow. Yet the few pages he had so far read to her, the introduction and a synopsis of the opening chapter, gave evidences of a firm possession of his subject and a deepening confidence in his powers. The fact threw her into deeper perplexity, since now that he had done with business and its disturbing contingencies, the one other possible element of anxiety was eliminated. Unless it were his health, then no. Physically, he had gained since they had come to Dorsetshire, grown robuster, ruddier, and fresher eyed. It was only within a week that she had felt in him the undefinable change that made her restless in his absence, and as tongue-tied in his presence as though it were she who had a secret to keep from him. The thought that there was a secret somewhere between them struck her with a sudden smart rap of wonder. She looked about her down the dim, long room. Can it be in the house? She mused. The room itself might have been full of secrets. They seemed to be piling themselves up as evening fell, like the layers and layers of velvet shadow dropping from the low ceiling, the dusky walls of books, the smoke-blurred sculpture of the hooded hearth. Why, of course, the house is haunted, she reflected. The ghost, Alita's imperceptible ghost, after figuring largely in the banter of their first month or two at Lying, had been gradually discarded as too ineffectual for imaginative use. Mary had, indeed, as became the tenant of a haunted house, made the customary inquiries among her few rural neighbors, but beyond a vague, "They do say so, ma'am," the villagers had nothing to impart. The elusive specter had apparently never had sufficient identity for a legend to crystallize about it, and after a time the Boynes had laughingly set the matter down to their profit and loss account, agreeing that Lying was one of the few houses good enough in itself to dispense with supernatural enhancements. And I suppose, poor, ineffectual demon, that's why it beats its beautiful wings in vain in the void, Mary had laughingly concluded. Or rather, Ned answered in the same strain, why, amid so much that's ghostly, it can never affirm its separate existence as the ghost. And thereupon their invisible housemate had finally dropped out of their references, which were numerous enough to make them promptly unaware of the loss. Yeah, I guess if you've not had any evidence in 6 months, you'd probably be like, okay, so just a story. I don't know. I'm going to take a quick drink, guys. I hope you are enjoying this. I love a good ghost story. And this is one that I had never heard of. Now, as she stood on the hearth, the subject of their earlier curiosity revived in her with a new sense of its meaning, a sense gradually acquired through close daily contact with the sense of the lurking mystery. It was the house itself, of course, that possessed the ghost-seeing faculty, that communed visually but secretly with its own past. And if one could only get into close enough communion with the house, one might surprise its secret and acquire the ghost sight on one's own account. That is a thought. Perhaps in his long solitary hours in this very room, where she had never trespassed till the afternoon, Her husband had acquired it already and was silently carrying the dread weight of whatever it had revealed to him. Mary was too well versed in the code of the spectral world not to know that one could not talk about the ghosts one saw. To do so was almost as great a breach of good breeding as to name a lady in a club. But this explanation did not really satisfy her. What, after all, except for the fun of the Frisian, she reflected, would he really care for any of their old ghosts? And then she was thrown back once more on the fundamental dilemma. The fact that one's greater or less susceptibility to spectral influences had no particular bearing on the case, since when one did see a ghost at Lyme, one did not know it. Not till long afterward, Alita Stair had said. Well, supposing Ned had seen one when they first came, and had known only within the last week what had happened to him. More and more under the spell of the hour, she threw back her searching thoughts to the early days of their tenancy, but at first only to recall a gay confusion of unpacking, settling, arranging of books, and calling to each other from remote corners of the house as treasure after treasure of their habitation revealed itself to them. It was in this particular connection that she presently recalled a certain soft afternoon of the previous October, when, passing from the first rapturous flurry of exploration to a detailed inspection of the old house, she had pressed, like a novel heroine, a panel that opened at her touch, and on a narrow flight of stairs leading to an unsuspected flat ledge of the roof which, from below, seemed to slope away on all sides too abruptly for any but practiced feet to scale. Ooh, so like a widow's walk. Ooh. And definitely spooky Heidi. Like, can you picture? You're just kind of like hollow, hollow, and then you press and it opens. Oh, please. The view from this hidden spot was enchanting, and she had flown down to snatch Ned from his papers and give him the freedom of her discovery. She remembered still how, standing on the narrow ledge, he had passed his arm about her while their gaze flew to the long-tossed horizon line of the downs, and then dropped contentedly back to trace the arabesque of yew hedges in the about the fish pond, and the shadow of the cedar on the lawn. And now the other way, he had said, gently turning her about with his arm, and closely pressed to him, she had absorbed, like some long, satisfying drink, the picture of the gray-walled court, the squat lions on the gates, and the lime avenue reaching up to the high road under the downs. It was just then, while they gazed and held each other, that she had felt his arm relax and heard a sharp "Hello!" that made her turn to glance at him. Distinctly, yes, she now recalled she had seen, as she glanced, a shadow of anxiety, of perplexity rather, fall across his face, and following his eyes, had beheld the figure of a man in loose grayish clothes, as it appeared to her, who was sauntering down the lime avenue to the court with the tentative gait of a stranger seeking his way. Her short-sighted eyes had given her but a blurred impression of slightness and grayness, with something foreign, or at least unlocal, in the cut of the figure or its garb. But her husband had apparently seen more, seen enough to make him push past her with a sharp "Wait!" and dash down the twisting stairs without pausing to give her a hand for the descent. A slight tendency to dizziness obliged her, after a provisional clutch at the chimney against which they had been leaning, to follow him down more cautiously. And when she had reached the attic landing, she paused again for a less definite reason, leaning over the oak banister to strain her eyes through the silence of the brown, sun-flecked depths below. She lingered there till, Somewhere in those depths, she heard the closing of a door. Then, mechanically impelled, she went down the shadow flights of steps till she reached the lower hall. The front door stood open on the mild sunlight of the court, and hall and court were empty. The library door was open, too, and after listening in vain for any sound of voices within, she quickly crossed the threshold and found her husband alone, vaguely fingering the papers on his desk. He looked up, as if surprised at her precipitate entrance, but the shadow of anxiety had passed from his face, leaving it even, as she fancied, a little brighter and clearer than usual. What was it? Who was that? She asked. Who? He repeated, with the surprise still all on his side. The man we saw coming towards the house. Boyne shrugged his shoulders. So I thought, but he must have got up steam in the interval. What do you say to our trying to scramble up Meldon Steep before sunset? That was all. At the time, the occurrence had been less than nothing, had indeed been immediately obliterated by the magic of their first vision from Meldon Steep, a height which they had dreamed of climbing ever since they had first seen its bare spine heaving itself above the low roof of Lying. Doubtless, it was the mere fact of the other incidents having occurred on the very day of their ascent to Meldon that had kept it stored away in the unconscious fold of association from which it now emerged. For in itself, it had no mark of the portentous. At the moment, there could have been nothing more natural than that Ned should dash himself from the roof in the pursuit of dilatory tradesmen. It was the period when they were always on the watch for one or the other of the specialists employed about the place, always lying in wait for them and dashing out at them with questions, reproaches, or reminders. And certainly in the distance, the gray figure had looked like Peter's. Yet now, as she reviewed the rapid scene, she felt her husband's explanation of it to have been invalidated by the look of anxiety on his face. Why had the familiar appearance of Peter's made him anxious? Why, above all, if it was such prime necessity to confer with that authority on the subject of the stable drains, had the failure to find him produced such a look of relief? Mary could not say that any one of these considerations had occurred to her at the time. Yet, from the promptness with which they now marshaled themselves at her summons, she had a sudden sense that they must all along have been there, waiting their hour. Dun, dun, dun. She's all alone in the house? Maybe she's not all alone in the house. Or maybe she always was alone in the house. Dun, dun, dun. That was a good one. I hope you guys like that. That did get spooky. Okay. I'm going to do something really, really quick. Really, really quick, because I'm not sure who. Thank you. Who, I know Heidi's here, but I'm not sure who the other one is. And I kind of am hoping it is this person. So we're just going to take a quick moment. Ah, it's my sister. It's my sister. Okay, so we're going to take a minute and what are you guys doing tomorrow? It's just going to be me and my kids tomorrow. So I'm going to prep a little bit of food tonight. Maybe I need to wrap presents. I don't know, 6-1. But yeah, So we are just, yeah, I'm going to do the regular eating, watching movies. Do you guys have a specific, like, this is the Christmas list? Or does somebody get to, like, pick drinking hot chocolate? Yeah. I got some sparkly white grape juice and sparkly cider today for tomorrow. Because I'll just open the fizzies in the morning and then pretend that I'm not being good while I cook food, because we always open presents after dinner. Okay, so is that a tradition? Like a family tradition or a Icelandic tradition? Because I'm very curious. I don't know very much because you're the first person. I want to say you're the first person I've met that has actually lived in Iceland. Iceland. I can't remember for sure. We had a foreign exchange student, not at my house, but when I was in high school, and I can't remember if she was from Iceland or Finland, and I feel terrible. But that was like 1995. Oh, that was 1995, 30 years ago. Wow. Okay. Recently, Icelanders open their presents Christmas Eve. Santa stops north first. Well, because it's closer. Start getting some of the weight off. Yeah. Travel the farthest distance with an empty sleigh. I don't want to hear it. Nope. Anyway, this is our other one. I wish I had the book. It might be in the box of books I have for the twins. So I just had to find a quick one of this. I'm so sorry. Whew. I'm going to share this with you guys. So the title that we all know is different from this title, but I like this one better. And please, please, please humor me if you're watching. I won't know if you don't, like for real, but if you say the last line with me, please put in the chat that you did, or type the last line with me in the chat. Just because it's Christmas. You don't have to get me anything. Just be in the chat. Just say the last line in the chat, and my heart will be so full. You're ready. Okay. So this title is A Visit from St. Nicholas. 'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And I in my kerchief, Papa in his cap, had just settled our brains for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new fallen snow gave a luster of midday to objects below. When what to my wondering eyes should appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer, with a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment he must be Saint Nick. More rapid than eagles his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donder and Blitzen. to the top of the porch, to the top of the wall. Now dash away, dash away, dash away, all. As leaves that before the wild hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacle, mount to the sky. So up to the housetops the coursers they flew, with a sleigh full of toys, and St. Nicholas too. And then, in a twinkling, I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples, how merry. His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard on his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke, it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a round little belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work. He and filled all the stockings and then turned with a jerk, and laying his finger aside of his nose and giving a nod, up the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and they all flew away like the down of a thistle. And I heard him exclaim, ere he drove out of sight, "Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night." Happy Christmas to all of you. Thank you for spending your Christmas Eve with me. Okay, I'm gonna go prep some food and wrap some presents and say Merry Christmas to all of you. And next week, oh, this is so exciting. Next week is New Year's Eve. And we have been waiting for weeks. We have Heidi's story next week. I'm so excited. And I haven't read it. And happy Christmas, my sister. Okay, so I'm doing this. So, yeah, watch us next week for Heidi's story. If I can figure out how to do it. Sorry, I'm just watching the chat because you guys are awesome. If I can figure out how to do it, we'll try to the Dusty Radio. Stay tuned. That's right. Same wolf time, same wolf channel. I'm only going to steal part of the line. But yeah, if Heidi is amenable to it and we can make it work, I'm going to bring her on for a minute so you guys can actually see our author. And I might send another copy because I noticed I'm not going to show it to anybody. It's just for me and to read out loud. And I don't know if you need to send me another copy, I'll have it. But yes, you guys, thank you. Don't be. As always, please be kind to each other. Share some or make some Christmas magic. And I'll see you guys next week. I love you. Merry Christmas.